Friday on the Krug Show. Look who's in the house. Chase Sr. We got a lot to get to. We always have a lot to get to. The Niners are never boring. We got to hit it right here. Let's go. Off and running on Friday morning. Welcome to the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. The best barbecue in all of Northern California is Pig and a Pickle. They're outstanding. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're soon to open in Petaluma. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. We're also brought to you by Sleeper and Habbas Law. We'll talk more about them before we get out of here. But look who's here. We've got Chase Sr. in the house, and we got a lot to get to. Back by popular demand, the star of Chat Sports is with us. I mean, give him a little bit more than that.
Thank you for the kind introduction.
Yes. All those people, look under your seats. It's like the Oprah show. Maybe we've left you a brand new car. Who knows?
It's so funny when people are in the chat saying, you guys are late. Oftentimes we're late because Larry and I are just chopping it up behind the scenes.
I know.
We're just catching up.
I know. I hate to say that, but we do, we've loved streaming with Chase because he's absolutely all over the Niners story. Chat Sports does an amazing job. They put out a lot of content, and it was really cool to see actually here face to face. It's funny because it's like when you stream with somebody regularly, like we stream regularly, I feel like I see you all the time, even though we've actually only met face to face like 2 or 3 times, right? Yeah. I mean, or is it 2 or 3 times? I forget it.
Las Vegas for the Super Bowl is the first time that.
Did you ever go to training camp? Did you ever come out here?
No,
for training camp?
But I'd like to come to training camp this summer and maybe do an event in San Francisco, because we did a Raiders event for Chat Sports in San Jose last Friday, and it absolutely popped off. I think we'd be able to do something similar somewhere in the Bay Area. So that was the first time we met in Vegas for Super Bowl 58, and then here at the Super Bowl last week.
Yeah, man. And you guys do great stuff. And I had a chance to meet some of the guys on your team, and that was very cool. And before we get into the Niners, how did you feel as an out-of-towner who was coming to San Francisco and kind of doing a little bit more of the touristy stuff and the events that the Super Bowl had? How did you feel that San Francisco did as the host city of Super Bowl 60?
I thought it was incredible. Me and the Chat Sports team had just a phenomenal time. And I think San Francisco is a really special city. There's so much to do, from me going on runs to the Ferry Building and to Oracle and the Chase Center, being around all of the bridges. I didn't even get to check out the Golden Gate Bridge. So that's on my bucket list. I really want to get to Alcatraz as well, but we had some great food. We really enjoyed the city. A lot of people were coming up to me all around the Bay Area saying thank you for the coverage, and it was great to be able to chop it up with some viewers, and then also people who just cover the Niners and other media members on Radio Row. But San Francisco is such a fun city. I thought they did a great job of hosting the Super Bowl. The only thing was like the logistical nightmare aspect of it, just doing shows at the Moscone Center and Radio Row, and then having to bus like 90 minutes to Levi's Stadium, or having to go to San Jose and Santa Clara with all of the traffic. That takes like 3 hours away from creating content. But outside of that, we really had a great time.
We got this one. Yeah, Larry, that's because they actually cleaned up the city because they were having guests. Let's keep it real. The city is a shithole. All right. Well, I there's no question. I mean, and it's not hey, special to the San Francisco. Anytime you have an event in your town, you're going to try to put your best foot forward. You're going to clean up the streets. You're going to when the Niners were at the Super Bowl in New Orleans, the Harbaugh Bowl, we got there like 10 days early. I don't know why they sent us so early, but they sent us really, really early. It was like a week and a half. And I was reading the New Orleans Times-Picayune, and there was an article about how they'd spent like millions of dollars for a cleanup of the French Quarter, and that the mayor walked around, saw it, and was like, "This is still disgusting." And so he advocated, and they spent millions on a Disneyland level cleanup. So that's like polishing the streets. I mean, that you don't realize how clean Disneyland really is compared to the general streets in any major city. So that's what they did. And they the French Quarter did not smell like urine, vomit, piss, or any of that stuff. It didn't smell horrible. It smelled great. It was great. So, that's just the way cities do it. They put their best foot forward. They clean it up. They move the homeless encampments away from the eyes of the tourists and all that thing. And, that's just the way it is. But yeah, I thought overall, the thing I was most happy about is that, Chase, San Francisco, the weather here can be anything, right? It can be 38 and 40 degrees and rainy in February, or it could be like what you guys experienced, which was like,
oh, it's beautiful,
like an early spring. It was
Yeah.
almost felt like March or April. And we won't
moderate temperatures.
Yeah, incredible. Now you were coming out of Dallas, right? So, what was it like in Dallas when you left? Was it cold?
Well,
in Dallas?
shoot, we had an ice storm a couple weeks ago in the
Right.
lead up to Super Bowl week, and because a warm weather city like Dallas doesn't have salt trucks or plows, I'm not even kidding. The entire city was covered in ice like an ice rink for a week, and it was pretty much shut down. So to go to the Bay Area and San Francisco to have that weather, it was beautiful. It's starting to warm up here this week. It's been in the 60s and 70s, which is nice. But my runs along the Embarcadero Trail were just awesome, and I can't wait to get back, hit up the Golden Gate Bridge, do some hiking, go to Alcatraz. Really looking forward to being able to do that.
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff. And if you come for the summertime, there's golf and the wine country and things that are really kind of fun.
You're golfing today, right?
I'm golfing today. Nice. Today. In fact, and I just booked my trip to spring training. Kev and I and my other son Ben, younger son, we're going out and we're going to play golf. We're going to watch some Cactus League games, and I'm fired up for that. But let's talk a little Niners. One of the stories that we want to get to is this one. Our friend Raj from RSF 49ers says the contracts for Niners, Juwan Jennings, Jordan Elliott, Yatir Gross-Matos will expire today, which will create a combined $14.4 million of dead cap space for the 2026 season, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not. The Niners had over $103 million of dead cap last year. They had the third most dead cap, and their number this year will be quite a bit lower. But of these three guys, I kind of think this is an interesting, post by Raj, because Eddie Pinheiro is the free agent they have to sign and will sign. I do think they'll re-sign some of the special teams guys. John Weeks, Thomas Morstead, maybe Sky Moore. I think those guys could be back. But the real question is these three guys. And these are the three guys, Yatir Gross-Matos, Jordan Elliott, and Juwan Jennings, that I think if you looked at the Niners, they have 28 free agents. I think 21 unrestricted. These are probably the three guys that may return and are probably the best players that they have that are free agents. What do you think, Chase? You're looking right at him. There's Juwan Jennings, Jordan Elliott, and Yatir Gross-Matos. Gross-Matos played well early in the year as an interior rusher before Bosa went down. He also helped them at times late in the year as an outside rusher. He had a problem staying healthy. He had a problem staying healthy at Penn State. Jordan Elliott kind of played, I thought, some of his best ball with the Niners, and we all know about Juwan. Are you bringing any of these guys back? Or are you saying goodbye to all three? Where do you stand on these three?
Can't do it with Yatir Gross-Matos. I liked him coming out of Penn State, the wingspan, the athleticism, the physicality. He was a second-round pick by the Carolina Panthers, and he didn't work out immediately for Carolina. His last year with the Panthers, I thought he played pretty well, and he was able to springboard that into getting a 2-year, $18 million deal with the Niners. And I had liked that at the time because I thought he was a good scheme fit. You could play him at defensive end and at defensive tackle. We've seen defensive line coach Chris Kocurek really be able to maximize some defensive linemen. Unfortunately for Yatir Gross-Matos, though, he was never able to stay healthy in his 2 years as a Niner. When he was on the field, I thought he played pretty well. But for a team that is looking to get healthier and escape this injury bug that has derailed a lot of their seasons and has hurt them since 2013, I can't bring back a Yatir Gross-Matos. And I know that we're talking about injuries here, but I'd rather allocate that type of money to a player like Joey Bosa. And I'm surprised that I've warmed up to the idea, but if you could go Yatir Gross-Matos or Joey Bosa, I think I'd go Joey Bosa. He's been healthier the last 2 years. I think he's a better pass rusher than Yetur Gross-Matos is. He's, of course, older, but I thought he played really well for Buffalo this past year. He had 47 pressures, an overall PFF grade, 79.3. He had the 7th highest pass rush grade among all pass rushers in football with 88.7. He had 30 hurries, 12 quarterback hits, and 5 sacks. At this point, I also don't think that he's going to be that expensive. And if you pair him opposite of Nick Bosa, of course, you keep your fingers crossed that they can stay healthy. But I think that he would be a more productive player who makes more sense. As far as Jordan Elliott goes, he's never been known to be a pass rushing defensive tackle, and he's not going to cost that much either. He would be an affordable veteran who helps you stop the run. But I'm good on Jordan Elliott because I think the Niners already have 2 blossoming, really good young players at defensive tackle who are talented in stopping the run in CJ West. It was great to interview him at the Super Bowl, and then Alfred Collins. And I think you want to build around them. I think what the Niners need to do at defensive tackle is actually bring in interior defensive linemen who can get after the quarterback a little bit better. And then lastly, there's Jauan Jennings. For me, it's all about the price tag. $15 million is probably the neighborhood I'd be comfortable in paying Jauan. You need to get faster, more explosive on offense. He doesn't help you there. You were the oldest offense in the NFL this past year. He's going to be 29 when the 2026 season comes around. And so if he's willing to take around 15, I'd think about bringing him back as like your wide receiver 3. Ricky Pearsall is your wide receiver 2. And then either in the draft or in free agency, you acquire that wide receiver 1 just because of the injury problems and concerns with Ricky Pearsall. But if it's over $15 million, I know that Jauan Jennings has been so clutch, and I know that he's had a bunch of great moments. He's been an awesome developmental story for this Niners organization as a former 7th-round pick who didn't even make the 53-man roster his rookie year, and then he got better and better and better as his career progressed, and he has been a player who really defines what it's like to be a Niner, playing with physicality, playing good team ball, willing to make sacrifices, being a dog. But I think a team might overpay him. And if that's the case, I think you let him walk in that instance.
Yeah, I think I'd let all 3 of these guys walk away. Gross-Matos has been too hurt. As you mentioned, Elliott's more of a run player. They need a pass rusher. Jennings, I just think I think Jennings is a really tough player. I really like Jennings a lot, but I just think that the odds that the way he was weepy at the end of the year tells me that he knows that he's gone. And the reason he knows he's gone is because he probably knows where the Niners are willing to go to, and he knows his market's graduated beyond that. And that's all great for him, right? That his market's burgeoning like that and exploding, but it's not great for the Niners, and I think it's not great for anybody who wants to see him come back. So I think he's probably out of there. Let's talk for a second about ideal fits, because you hit on something there. I agree with you. I think the 49ers need very specific players. Like, give you an example. They need a defensive tackle, but they don't just need any defensive tackle. They've got CJ West. They got Alfred Collins. They need Zane Durant. Now, I'm a big Zane Durant fan from Penn State. He's a pass rusher. He's 6'1", 6'2". He's 288, 290. But he's a runner. He's got great speed, and he's almost like a linebacker the way he moves. And to me, that's the kind of piece that I would want to add inside to West and Collins. If they could add Zane Durant, I like that three defensive tackle arrangement with 2 guys that can really play the run, and then 1 guy that can really get after the rusher or after the quarterback. Who do you think? I'm throwing out Durant. Is there another interior player that you think's a good fit?
Well, I love the Zane Durant thought. I actually just released my first Niners mock draft of the draft season this morning on the 49ers Report, so be sure to check that video out. And I had the Niners taking Zane Durant 4th round, 138 overall. And I agree with you. I think that, of course, there are some concerns with his lack of size as an interior defensive lineman because, to your point, he's hovering around 290 pounds. But that's the type of interior defensive lineman who the Niners need to target to really bounce off of who they already have. Alfred Collins is 6'6", 330. And he's really good against the run. Can he get better as a pass rusher? No doubt about it. I thought he really progressed and improved as his rookie year wore on. CJ West is a player who's shorter than Alfred Collins, but he's got some girth to him, and he's got strong, violent hands with a good get off. He too can hold up well against the run. You bring in a player like Zane Durant, who has that explosive get off at the line of scrimmage, who's able to get skinny in beating double teams when he's not getting swallowed up by those double teams because of his lack of size. This is a player who is very explosive and twitchy. He's one of the better athletes in this draft class. He made Bruce Feldman's preseason list of the top freaks across college football. So I think that's the type of player that they need to pinpoint. Another player who I had going to the Niners in my mock draft, who had a really good Senior Bowl, and he actually bulldozed Markel Bell, the offensive tackle out of Miami, who's damn near 360 pounds. And I had Markel Bell going to the Niners in my mock draft as well in the 3rd round. But in the 2nd round, I went with Derek Moore, the edge rusher out of Michigan. Derek Moore is another player who has that fast get off. He's a really good athlete. He's willing to set the edge against the run. He needs to get a little bit better there, but he has a really good arsenal of pass rushing moves. And that's the direction that I kind of want to see the Niners go into come in draft time, because this addresses needs. I think these players complement some of the players that the Niners already have on their roster. And so I had Casey Concepcion, the wide receiver out of Texas A&M, going to the Niners in the 1st round. Derek Moore, the edge rusher out of Michigan, to the Niners in the 2nd round. Markel Bell, you address the offensive line with a future potential Trent Williams replacement in the 3rd round. Bryce Betcher is an uber athletic linebacker out of Oregon who got drafted by the Astros and has really good range. That's a good player to put alongside Fred Warner. He's a see ball, get ball type of player. Bishop Fitzgerald is a ball hawking safety who I have going to the Niners in the 4th round out of USC. Had 5 picks this past year and a coverage grade of nearly 90. And then Zane Durant and Pat Coogan, the center, rounding out my mock. So, you see the direction that I'm going in, right? You get that wide receiver to rebuild the wide receiver room. You get a pass rusher to help you there. You get a developmental offensive tackle who might be able to play left guard in 2026. You need to get more physical and get some dogs and maulers to keep up with the Seahawks team. So I agree with you. You're not just looking for any players. You're looking for players who make sense, and obviously the best players available on the board.
Now, you went wide receiver in round 1, which leads right into this conversation. Coach Yak put this out yesterday, or maybe the day before, on Twitter. And it was basically just a deal involving Justin Jefferson. It would be Mac Jones and a 1st-round pick this year and a 2nd-round pick next year going to Minnesota for Justin Jefferson. Now, I don't know if this would get it done. There's a lot of talk that Jefferson would like to join maybe Cincinnati and play with Joe Burrow again, or maybe join Seattle and play with Sam Darnold again. I kind of think Seattle might look at this and say, yeah, this is what we need to do. It'd be a very smart move for John Schneider. You're on top. Why take a chance or a risk with draft capital when you've got the cap room to potentially add Justin Jefferson to JSN? Now, if you're the 49ers, would you make this trade? Would you basically said you were going to take KC Concepcion. So it'd be like basically your 1st-round pick that you were going to use on KC Concepcion and Mac Jones, and then a 2nd-round pick in the 27 draft. To me, that seems like a very equitable price, and it's really a fair price when you think about the alternative of JJ pairing with JSN, which is a nightmare situation, I think, for everybody in the NFC, including the Niners. And then think about the division. You've got, in Arizona, you got Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson. You've got Puka and Adams in LA. You've got now JSN and Jefferson together in Seattle. I mean, that would be really scary. The Niners might have to go corner a couple times just to match up. But what do you think? I mean, would you make that trade and trade Jones in your 1st this year and your 2nd next year if that would land you Minnesota to prevent him from going to Seattle?
Yeah, a lot of thoughts on this. And I was talking about a Justin Jefferson trade a little bit earlier in the week, and I kind of made the argument, Do you want to go and bring a player like Debo Samuel back? You need to get younger and more explosive on offense. He doesn't help you do that. Do you want to make a trade for Jordan Addison? You just got done dealing with the whole Brandon Ayuk saga with his character concerns. Do you want to go after Jordan Addison, who's been arrested, 2 or 3 times since he was drafted? He's fast. He's a good route runner. He's explosive. But I think the Niners are very fatigued by some of the drama they've dealt with at the wide receiver spot. So I threw out Justin Jefferson because he's still a young player. He's one of the best wide receivers in football. His production to start his career has been historic. And over the last few years, he's continued to produce despite bad quarterback play or his quarterbacks being injured. He's thrived and flourished under Kevin O'Connell. Where does Kevin O'Connell come from? The Sean McVay tree. Sean McVay comes from the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree, of course. And so you think about that trade where the Niners would receive Justin Jefferson, who's still in the midst of his prime. He'd be a good scheme fit for Shanahan. I think that with Brock Purdy and his ability to throw with timing, touch, accuracy, and anticipation with an underrated deep ball, the route tree for could go crazy. And you give up Mac Jones a 2026 first and a 2027 second round pick. In 2026, you'd still have some pretty good draft capital. The player who you select with the 27th overall pick this year would not be better than Justin Jefferson. Yeah, I took Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M in my first Niners mock draft. He's not the player that Justin Jefferson is, nor do I think he's ever going to become that. He's kind of like Debo Samuel and is very explosive. He can create separation. He can pick up yards after the catch. He's a pretty well-built 200 pounds, but Justin Jefferson is literally putting together one of the best careers of any wide receiver in the history of football. What the Niners would have to do, though, who's going to be the backup quarterback? Is it Curtis Rourke? Is it going to be a guy like Zach Wilson, who, Larry, you and I have talked about as a potential developmental project for Kyle Shanahan? Could you get him on that Sam Darnold, Mac Jones developmental path where he can resurrect and revive his career? You sign Mac Jones to a very affordable contract. You sign Sam Darnold to a very cost-friendly deal. You can do the same thing with Zach Wilson. He's your QB2. You drafted Curtis Rourke. Then your quarterback room is Purdy, Zach Wilson, Curtis Rourke. That gives you some quarterback security if Brock Purdy were to get hurt. So I know that the Niners have said, we don't want to trade Mac Jones. And I understand where they're coming from. The guy went 5-3 and played really well with Kendrick Bourne as his number 1 wide receiver. Not a slight to Kendrick Bourne, but that's what Mac Jones was doing in maximizing the pieces around him. Good pocket feel, good pocket mobility, good arm, good scheme fit for Kyle Shanahan. He can play point guard in this offense. But if a Mac Jones trade can net you Justin Jefferson and you have a good backup quarterback plan, I would make that trade too, because Jefferson is a player who helps you close the gap on Seattle. He gives you a player who can actually put a threat into that Seahawks defense because they did not have any worries going up against this Niners team in those final 2 matchups. And he just makes your offense so much better.
It's a really interesting year for the receivers. I saw that Dane Brugler had 17 receivers in his top 100 players. I mean, that really opened my eyes.
Deep class.
You mentioned Concepcion, but is there a receiver outside of the first round? I mean, because I don't know if I see the Niners going receiver in the first round. I think
they did it with Pearsall, and that was surprising.
Yeah, and maybe because they did it with Pearsall, they wouldn't do it again. The only other reason I don't see him going receiver in the first round is I think Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson, Denzel Boston, like the top 4 guys for sure are going to be off the board. Chris Bell tore his ACL, so he's probably not going in the first round. Zachariah Branch is really exciting, but he's so small that I don't think he's going in the first round.
Yeah, I think it's day 2 or day 3.
Yeah, so Concepcion might be the only other guy that they could get right there in the first round. If you weren't going first round receiver, is there a receiver that you like later in the draft? I mean, they're talking about speed. Barryon Brown from LSU is probably one of the fastest receivers in the country. He runs in the 4.2s. I can't wait to see what he looks like at Indy. There's also Josh Cameron, who's kind of a big-bodied receiver from Baylor, who's very exciting. Kuiper was talking up Skylar Bell on the draft show last night. A lot of people like Omar Cooper. I kind of like Kevin Coleman and Ted Hurst, Malachi Fields, Jeremy Bernard. I mean, there's a bunch of dudes. I mean, there's a lot of guys here. Is there a receiver outside of round 1 that you like?
I think Denzel Boston is an intriguing option, but you might have to trade up for him early in round 2 if he doesn't go round 1. He's 6'4", 210 out of Washington. He's a really good player, plays big, plays balanced, and has really good hands. He had a 3.1% drop rate. I see some people in the chat right now kind of ripping this player, but I'm fascinated by him, and that's Chris Brazell out of Tennessee. He's 6'5", 200 pounds, and he can fly. He reaches top speed in a blink. He would help the Niners accomplish what they desperately need to do this offseason, which is getting faster as an offense. And I think Brazell is really smooth in and out of his cuts, in and out of his breaks, solid route runner. Definitely needs to improve his consistency on some of these intermediate routes, and some of those deep crossers, intermediate routes for Kyle Shanahan are important in the offense. He's only 200 pounds at 6'5", but when you can run and when you can make plays downfield and you're that big, you're that tall, really intriguing prospect there who definitely isn't going to go in round 1, but could be a really good round 2, round 3 target.
Yeah, there's just so many guys. I mean, Chris Hilton from LSU, I think is a day 3 sleeper. I mean, there's a bunch of guys. Somebody said this kid Stribling from Ole Miss, kind of like him. Deion Burks, kind of like him. You know who's one of my favorite?
Elijah Surratt is another one of those big-bodied Indiana guys. He can go up and get it.
I mean, Howie Roseman's probably going to take this guy because he went to Georgia, but I'm a Dylan Bell fan who, Dylan Bell, you watch Georgia, they always had highly rated receivers, but every time they got into a big game, they kept going to this kid. And he's kind of like a Debo. He's like 6'1", 210, 215. He's kind of can do all those kind of gadget, routes around the line of scrimmage. He's interesting to me for sure. All right. One thing I wasn't going to bring this up because some people are tired of the Substation story, but this is kind of the latest on the Substation, which I think is kind of interesting as well. I don't know if you saw this, but Coach Yak just put this out. He says Tim Kawakami believes the 49ers could eventually move their practice facility, but primarily due to the space limitations, not necessarily the substation, which, is another way to kind of sidestep the whole thing, right? They could use more room. The football office building is very old and cramped. I could see them eventually moving the football offices and fields to another nearby location, not because of the substation, but because everything changes and gets updated eventually. What do you think of that? I mean, this is kind of the footprint. This is the stadium right up here, and obviously this building right here is the 49ers practice facility, which predates the stadium. This was built years and years and years ago. The substation is back here somewhere, which you can't really see. This right here is the gigantic weight room, which was almost like a temporary building that was put up. And then you got the players' parking lot here, and the stadium and all this are here, and this is just the driveway in. This is the practice fields, and over here are city-owned soccer fields, and the substation is somewhere over to the side here. What do you think of this story? I mean, I'll say this. I mean, the 49ers have to do something because there's so much talk about the substation. Rogan's talking about it. It's a major talking point. You were on Radio Row
for
hours and hours and hours. It was, where would you put the substation as far as the Super Bowl 60 week talking
number
points?
2 behind the game?
Yeah. I mean, it was really, really high on the list. There was a lot more talk about the substation than I'm sure the Niners were comfortable with or anybody's comfortable with. And to me, it's like hope is not a plan. And saying that Jerry stayed healthy is not an answer. And Jedge probably should never talk about this again if that's what he's going to say. And more than anything, it's like the Niners have like 2 weeks now to either put everybody's mind at ease, come up with a new plan, somehow discredit the people who are saying that this is causing injuries. I don't know that it is, but I don't know that it isn't. And I think my viewpoint on it is probably the viewpoint of most NFL players, where they've heard the talk and they know that it could just be talk, but they also know that there could be something to it. So free agency, I mean, it's like if you thought there was, hey, I'm thinking about the Niners or the Raiders, and the Niners, it's like, well, you know what? Yeah, I may win more at the Niners, but the idea that these are players. These are people that care a ton about their body.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, none of these people are going to care at all. They're just going to sign. So, like, the people who have tried to poo-poo this by saying, oh, all these guys care about is money. It's like, yeah, you're wrong, dude. These guys care about their bodies a lot. And if all it takes is, it's not like, oh, play with the Niners and make millions or make nothing and work at Circle K. There's another team that doesn't have a substation next to their facility that's going to offer the same, if not more. So
and that other team might not have California taxes.
Not even to mention, we haven't gotten there, the gas tax and the mileage tax. And, it's very expensive to live in California. And I'm from here, so I've got family here. But if you're not from here, if you're from suburban Atlanta or something, why would you come to a place with all these taxes and then possibly the substation issue? So that this is a bigger issue than I think people realize. If free agency wasn't one of like 2 or 3 avenues to get players, it wouldn't be a big deal. But since it is, I think this could be a major deal. I think they have, I don't know, how would you handle this if you were them?
So I was watching Rise of the 49ers the other night, and obviously Eddie DeBartolo is one of the most legendary owners in professional sports. I mean, the guy won 5 Super Bowls in 23 years as the owner of the Niners, and it's unfortunate how his ownership came to an end. But a thought came to me, Larry, and I want to get your thoughts on this, and then we'll talk about what Kawakami had to say. If Eddie DeBartolo, who loved and adored his players, who was very aggressive, and wanted to do and did everything to win, was the owner right now, and his players were voicing concerns about this, and he looked at the track record of the Niners being one of the most injured teams in the NFL since 2013, I think that Eddie D would move the practice field. What do you think? Just the way that he operated.
He would do something major. He would either rip out the substation and pay the $10 million to erect it somewhere else, or he would move the practice fields.
I agree.
He wouldn't just do nothing and hope.
Yep, I agree. And so I thought it was a bad look for Jed York to shoot down this theory during Super Bowl week and bring it up unprompted when his employees, the players on the team, were the ones who were voicing concerns and kept talking about it and continue to talk about it. So I think Eddie D would have listened to his players. Jed York clearly is not. What the Niners could do just for the 2026 season, I love youth soccer and I want kids to be healthy, but the 49ers bring in millions and billions of dollars as an organization. They're very important to the local economy in Santa Clara, much more so than local soccer teams. I would just move that practice field and put some new sod down to get it up to date with NFL standards and move the practice field to the youth soccer complex because the space is already right there. So I would almost do that as a self-experiment for the 2026 season to just see if it works and to see if that can lead to the Niners being healthier. It's not the only thing, but it could be one thing. And as far as Kawakami's piece here, he is a legendary Bay Area sports writer, and I trust the work that he does. I remember being a kid and I was reading some of his work. And so obviously he has some tremendous sources across the Bay Area. I'm not shooting down what he's saying at all, but my antennas go up a little bit. Could the Niners be telling him this, or could somebody be giving him this information and say, it's not because of the substation that we're going to move the practice field because we don't want to admit that we are wrong, but instead it's because our facilities are outdated. That's why we're going to move the practice field and the facility. If the Niners move it, I think it's a good play. I mean, you see teams across the NFL who are revamping their practice facilities. They are building and constructing new ones or spending millions of dollars to renovate them. And the Niners facility is a little bit outdated and it's a little bit small, to Kawakami's point. So build something new. You don't really have a lot of space right there to do that. Build something new and get that practice field further away from that electrical substation. And it's funny because a lot of people will shoot this down and call people who put stock into this a conspiracy theorist. Would you buy a house near an electrical substation? I know I wouldn't, because I think it's a little bit weird and I'd be worried about some health issues. Get that practice field away from that substation. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, I almost bought a house near a substation actually, years ago.
But you
Uh,
didn't.
but we didn't. We didn't. And it wasn't necessarily because of the substation, but now looking back at it, I'm glad that we didn't. But it's like, you've ever seen the movie Aaron Brockovich? I mean, there's contaminants, and there are things that are in, you see people in certain parts of the country where there's class action lawsuits because where their place of work was near some facility in New Jersey that had leakage, and people get sick. I mean, these are real things that really happen. So it's not like, oh my God, you're crazy. No, you're not necessarily 100% safe all the time.
I don't know why people get so fired up and emotional about this. Like, I'm seeing people in the comment section saying, Chase, you have your tinfoil hat on. This is ridiculous. You've been talking about it for weeks. I want the 49ers to stay healthy. The Niners have not been healthy going all the way back to 2013 consistently. And so there are probably multiple reasons why they can't stay healthy. It's not just bad luck at this point. So my point is, look at everything to try to figure it the F out, because whatever they're doing is not working. Do you want your Niners team to be healthier? Every fan should want that, because it's limiting what they're able to accomplish as a football team. And so, Jed York, you might be worried about building a new facility and spending millions of dollars, but it doesn't make sense if you don't want to spend money to invest in that when the players you're paying millions of dollars to can't play, and that's costing you money.
What if, nobody's even mentioning this, it's February 13th. What if we get to a month from today, March 13th, and the Niners are shut out in free agency?
Not good.
What if they sign nobody?
Happen, but it wouldn't be good.
What if they sign nobody and they made offers? And then just like, there's just a lot of concern about that situation because of the substation.
Well,
then all of a sudden,
acted faster then.
All of a sudden it is a 5-alarm fire, and people are like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? So, I mean, I don't think, I understand that there's not a lot of new developments, but there was that new release story by Kawakami, and I thought it was worth mentioning. I understand where a lot of people are coming from, though, because they want to talk football, and we're talking substation. So I get that. I get that. But
the football team is injured,
and it's impacted
all the time.
and these things impact one another.
Yeah.
Bleacher Report had an interesting article today, and they do a bunch of interesting articles, but they had one that caught my eye today, and it was basically the overlooked veterans. And I love this aisle for the Niners. Okay, listen to this list. Kenneth Gainwell. How great would Kenneth Gainwell be? Former Eagle, former Steeler.
Awesome third down back with some wiggle.
Yeah, who can catch it. I mean, he would be a really nice compliment. Maybe one back in the draft and a guy like Gainwell added to CMC. I mean, I don't know if Shanahan would use them, but that guy makes sense. Then the next guy on this list, Christian Kirk. Another this guy can run. He's not old. He got too much money to go to Jacksonville in free agency. Trent Baalke way overpaid him. Now he's in Houston. But, I mean, he's the kind of vertical threat receiver that would complement what they have. He's a downfield guy for sure. That one makes sense. This one makes sense. Isaiah Likely, the tight end for Baltimore, I think that would be a great addition for the 49ers. I think Likely could be a really bust-out player for whoever he plays for next. I don't know that much about Luke Fortner, but the next guy on this list, Joseph Osai, makes a lot of sense from the Bengals. 25-year-old edge rusher who's got some talent, has some ability to rush the passer, is going to cost you a whole lot less than a lot of these guys like Crosby and Hendrickson and all that. Just an interesting, they also go with Christian Roseboom and Rajoul Douglas. But, that's an interesting group of guys right there. To me, what do you think of those guys? Joseph Osai, Isaiah Likely, Christian Kirk, and Kenneth Gainwell as potential Niners in free agency.
Kirk's a good player when healthy, but his injury history definitely concerns me a little bit. I think Kenneth Gainwell could be a really good player in this Niners offense just because he's such a good pass catching back and can really make a lot of guys miss in open space. There are a couple other affordable free agents who I've been talking about this week on the 49ers report. CJ Gardner-Johnson is one of them. The Niners have been one of the worst teams in the NFL at generating turnovers the last 2 years. I just think they need some cold-blooded assassins on their team. Enough of the goody two-shoes players who love football and don't have an edge to them. I think they need to get meaner. I think they need to get a little bit more aggressive. They need to get some swag back, especially on defense. But from a football standpoint, generating the turnovers, being a ball hawk. That's what CJ Gardner-Johnson can do. He could play safety. He could play nickel corner. And I know he's got some character concerns, but he's been working hard on it. I've talked to CJ before. Ben Johnson really liked what he did, and he helped to save the Bears defense halfway through the year because they were so bad. So that's one of them. Another one who could follow Raheem Morris from Atlanta to the Niners is David Onyemata. David Onyemata is a defensive lineman who has shown some good things. He's had some pop. He's had some solid production. As a rotational player who can get after the quarterback from the interior of the defensive line, that's another one who I'd like for the Niners to go after.
There's been a lot of talk this week about Debo. And, to me, I went and looked at an article talking about guys who were cap casualties, and they had Debo, Greenlaw, Armstead, Hargrave. And this is like a big concern for me. I don't want to see the Niners do this memory lane. Hey, it feels good. I saw Kittle get all smiley. Hey, we might be bringing back some of our, it's like, dude, you don't need to be bringing back any of these has-been guys that played their best football years ago. And yet the way the Niners went about their personnel this year, they brought back Kendrick Bourne, they brought back Malik Turner. And it seems like every time they had an injury this summer, they wanted to bring somebody back who had been here previously. It's like they've stopped making evaluations and they're leaning on like past evaluations. It's kind of bizarre, actually. But I just feel like there's a warmth to this group with Shanahan and Lynch where, Howie's cold, and Howie wouldn't look back that much. But
John
these
Schneider
guys
wouldn't either. He got rid of Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf and Geno Smith.
These guys are. If the Niners go backwards and start picking up their former players, trying to rekindle the past, including Debo, I'm just going to pan the hell out of that. There's no way that's a good move. There's no way that's a smart move. Debo played his best ball. I'm not struggling. I just don't get the ball. No, you were fucking struggling. And then you got the ball and you sucked. And then you moved on this year and you were okay. But I don't want to see them do this. And yet I get the feeling if you made me wager, I bet you anything that they're going to somehow try to bring back one of these old donkeys that can't play anymore. And I just don't want to see it. I really don't want to see it. And I know the players are going to be like, oh, look at it. And the media people that, I get to interview Debo again. A couple fans will be like, oh, I get to, I can dust off my jersey that I have in the drawer. It's like, none of these things are going to lead to a Super Bowl. I'm really against them bringing back their former players. Where are you on that?
I completely agree. And Debo Samuel, when he was healthy and at his peak, one of the most unique and dynamic players in the NFL in recent memory. And anytime he had a big play, the chant was Debo. Whoa. If the Niners brought him back, the chant from me would be Debo. No.
Yeah, no.
The Niners need to get younger, faster, more explosive on the offensive side of the football. And Debo Samuel is an older, aging player who is slowing down. Debo Samuel has one 1,000-yard season in his career, and it was when he was a first-team All-Pro in 2021, when he probably should have gotten more MVP recognition. Debo Samuel since 2021 has not sniffed getting close to 1,000 yards. And Debo Samuel this past year was solid in Washington. He wasn't used as much of a wide back. That probably helped his body a little bit. But you said something that I think is apt, and you hit the nail on the head. Signing Debo does not get you closer to a Super Bowl. It would be laughable to reunite with Debo, because when you go up against a team like Seattle, they were sticking to your receivers like Velcro. Well, Debo Samuel can't separate, and he can't run routes. So are you going to use him as just a gadget guy? Doesn't really make sense. If you want a gadget guy, like bring back Sky Moore for a very affordable price. Can we see Jacob Cowing get on the field? Shoot, can Jordan Watkins get on the field and give you some speed? That's what you need. You don't need Debo Samuel. And he would be a lot cheaper than the contract that they had paid him, probably between $13 and $15 million. But he's been injured a lot, and he just lacks that speed. And he's a player who's very prideful, right? If he weren't used like a number one or a number two, I could see Debo being very unhappy with his role. And we saw how that played out at the end of 2024, where he force-fed the issue. Kyle Shanahan then force-fed him the ball. And against the Rams, he was dropping balls, was sulking on the sideline and miserable to the point where he pretty much demanded a trade. And now a year later, he might want to come back. No, you got to move on. You got to get younger.
Yeah, get younger. I mean, my God, the last time you ran this guy as a running back, he averaged like 2 yards a carry. I mean,
the runs to Debo were predictable and not effective the last 2 years, in 2023 and in 2024. Didn't work anymore.
Can't turn the corner. Cannot turn the corner. Never had great ball skills. No, please, no. Man, and the fact that George is like rooting for it, it's like, you know, that you're gonna have a bunch of guys in the room that you like, and you guys are all gonna lose together. So you're good with that? If you're good with that, let me know.
I see a comment, Jalero. You're telling me Sky Moore is better than Debo? No. But if you're going to use Debo as a gadget guy at $15 million, you could use Sky Moore as a gadget guy for $1 million. That's the point that I'm making. Debo can't return punts. Sky Moore can.
Yeah, Sky Moore is better than Debo, by the way. He's got way more left than Debo. He's going to take it up the field way more than Debo.
Much more speed.
What did Debo do for the Commanders? How did the Commanders do this year with Debo, by the way?
700 yards, a few touchdowns. Looks solid. I think he shed a couple pounds. Terry McLaurin was out. He became the number one, and he was okay, but he's not a number one. He's not a number one. And the Niners need a number one wideout.
They can't go backwards. Stop with this go backwards thing. This isn't baseball. Guys don't have a second prime. When the guys crest the hill in the NFL, they keep getting worse. They don't get better. All right. Quick shout out to our friends at Sleeper. You already know Sleeper for fantasy football with their daily fantasy, but they're also rolled out something new called Team Picks. That's right. Team Picks is built right into the Sleeper app and lets you make simple predictions on game outcomes instead of worrying about player stats or setting lineups. You're just choosing which team you think is going to win the game. So it's designed to be straightforward and really easy to understand, especially if you like following games closely, but you don't want all the minutia and extra complexity. If you're already on Sleeper for fantasy, it's right there waiting for you. And if you're new to Sleeper, Sleeper continues to be an all-in-one platform for following your teams and staying connected to the action. Thanks to Sleeper for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. We really appreciate them. And also one last one as well. Thanks to our good friends at Habbas Law, 1-800-INJURED. They will fight to make it right. HabbasLaw.com on the web. If you need a good attorney, Habbas Law is for you. They bring us our supers here, and we've got three. One's not a super. We got this one from Anthony. Anthony says, Larry, no more D'Angelo Ponds at 27. You know, I'm not saying I would take him at 27, but if the Seahawks are going to wind up with JSN and Justin Jefferson, you need corners. And Ponds is a hell of a corner. We got this one from Huxley. He says, F you, Larry, and Chase. F Seattle. What is that hat, by the way? A lot of people are commenting on your hat.
Yeah, just a Super Bowl 60 hat. So this is my fourth straight Super Bowl that we're on Radio Row, and I've gotten some gear and hats from all of them outside of the Vegas one, which bums me out because that Super Bowl logo was sick. But I needed to get a Super Bowl 60 San Francisco hat. So it's got the logo here and then the Golden Gate Bridge on the back. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah.
Silences don't even want JJ back. Won't help versus Seattle.
Kind of agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jennings is gone. I really do. And we got this one from Boxing Fan ×4. He says, forget free agency. What if the 2026 draft class sit out over the substation or the players constantly bringing up during the 30 visits or formal interviews, Jed. Yeah, I mean this could take on a life of its own. I think you got to get ahead of it and make some decision that makes people go, okay, they're addressing it, they're serious about it, they understand that this is not a good situation. All right, one last one I want to throw your way because I saw this on X. Let me see, I had this here. Oh, there it is. Okay, so let me call this up. 49er Web Zone has an article up about A.J. Brown. And I know you cover the Niners and the Eagles, so you might be the perfect person to ask. What is the deal with A.J. Brown? Here is, it says a blockbuster move for A.J. Brown, ? One trade proposal has the 49ers sending Brandon Ayuk and picks to Philly. Would you make the deal? The question is, why would they make the deal? But beyond that, what is the deal with A.J. Brown? Why is there discontent with A.J. Brown? And would you be an advocate for the 49ers to make whatever deal they need to make to acquire A.J. Brown? He's been productive, but then Jason Kelce kind of took a shot at him, and then he kind of backed down from it and said, I wasn't taking a shot at him. It really sounded like a shot. So what you cover this team and know all the stories. Why? I mean, there was this, he brings a book to the sideline, and then there was, I mean, he's reading books, he's this and that. I mean, what is the deal? What is the nature of the discontent between A.J. Brown and the Eagles? Or, what is this? Why is there smoke around A.J. Brown, and why is he ticketed to leave?
Well, I think he's just been unhappy the last couple of years when the offense has not reached expectations given the talent level. And I think he's been frustrated really in the 2 years where the Eagles have not had good offensive coordinators. And that's frustrated him from a production standpoint because the guy is just a great competitor. Now, he was on Micah Parsons' podcast last week, and he said that Philly is home and he's looking forward to the 2026 season because of the overhaul in the scheme, because the Eagles are pivoting to more of that Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur scheme. But when you voice unhappiness with an organization and you're one of the top wide receivers in football, teams are going to come calling, and that's going to lead to your name coming up in trade conversations and in trade rumors. I mean, for the Niners, A.J. Brown would be Kyle Shanahan's most talented wide receiver that he's had since Julio Jones. And A.J. Brown's kind of like a modern day Julio Jones, very physical, very gifted, good route tree, good hands, deep threat, just a complete wide receiver. But one, I don't think the Eagles would want to trade him to the Niners because they're turning into pretty big rivals and they're both going to be competing for a Super Bowl next year. Two, I think the Eagles want to see what AJ can do in this new offense. And they're in this Super Bowl window. If they trade away A.J. Brown, it doesn't make them a better team. Plus, they'd have to eat like $30-40 million in dead money. So I just don't see why they would trade him. I think they give it one more season to see how it goes. And then if it doesn't go well, by the trade deadline or next year, I think that would be the time to move him. But if you're the Niners, I'd make the call because he's a legitimate number one wide receiver who over the last few years has been borderline top 3 to 5, definitely top 10.
What's the price tag going to be?
I would say a second and a third. I don't think he's worth a first. He's 28. His average yards of separation last year went down just a little bit. But with the Eagles, I mean, he had 4 straight years of over 1,000 yards, and his first 3 years, he was an all-pro. So I think it's a second and a third. He's going to be, I think, 29 next year. So he's still got some really good years left in him. But he's a physical wideout, so you don't know how a player like that ages.
Good stuff. Last one, and we appreciate all you guys jumping in. But thank you very much for the supers. Do we get this one? Forget free agency.
Yeah, we got that.
We just got that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the way out the door, and thanks to Habbas Law, 1-800-INJURED. They will fight to make it right. HabbasLaw.com on the web. Thanks to Habbas Law for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. We appreciate them an awful lot. They do an incredible thing as a sponsor for the Krug Show. We appreciate them. If you could add one player in any way to the Niners, free agency, trade, draft, who would be that one player?
I would say Tyler Linderbaum or Alec Pierce. Those are the two players that I would really like. Alec Pierce is a big-bodied wide receiver who can run really well, and he's led the NFL in yards per catch the last 2 years. So I think that he would be a terrific player. and he would help you rebuild your wide receiver room and get more explosive and dynamic as an offense. And then Tyler Linderbaum, I think, helps you when you go up against a team like Seattle that is so stout up front. He helps your run game. He helps your pass protection, and overall just improves your offensive line play.
Before we bolt for the door, Dante Whitner ripped the crap out of the Raheem Morris hire. I like Raheem Morris. I think Raheem Morris was a home run hire because I think it gives them a really solid guy that also knows Shanahan, that can help evolve their defense, more 5-man fronts, probably a little bit more continuity on the back end than Schwartz would have provided. They'll play more zone with him than they would have with Schwartz. So I kind of like Raheem Morris, that hire, but Whitner didn't like it and said, you know what, it was nepotism and he's only been hired by his friends and this and that. What do you think? Give me your quick thought. Did you see that video where
I did.
Whitner? What did you think? Whitner
I think your
had a lot of
really good, by the way.
Yeah, the podcast that he does is good. Yep. But what do you think? Whitner's ripping that Raheem Morris pick. I mean, do you like the Raheem Morris hire, or do you see the flaws?
I like it. He was my third choice of the potential available choices behind Brian Flores, who went back to the Vikings, and then Jim Schwartz, who looks like he's going to sit out 2026 because he's under contract. And Raheem Morris was my number 3 option. I like it. I think he's a good communicator. I think players play very hard for him. I think the relationship with Kyle Shanahan is very important. I know that the overall defensive numbers haven't been stellar. I do think some of that is due to personnel issues. But now he's going to be able to coordinate a defense that has Nick Bosa, Michael Williams, and Fred Warner coming back. I think they're going to use more capital there in the draft and in free agency, hopefully. They need to shore up safety play, but I think that he can help out some of these safeties. I like CJ West and Alfred Collins. The biggest thing with Raheem, I like how he's been like malleable and he's been able to make adjustments with his scheme. He was a student of the Tampa 2 defenses in the early 2000s under the legendary like Monty Kiffin, who made that famous, and Tony Dungy. And then he took over for Brandon Staley as the Rams DC in 2021. They won a Super Bowl that year, but Brandon Staley is a Vic Fangio disciple, and it's a completely different defense. So I like how Raheem Morris has been able to blend the defenses. And then we really saw from 2024 to 2025, the Atlanta defense was a joke in 2024. He hired Jeff Ulbrich, who the Niners wanted as their DC before they settled for Nick Sorensen. And that defense was actually really good. James Pierce is obviously in a lot of legal trouble, and who knows what his future is. But as a rookie, he had double-digit sacks, really good production from guys like Jalen Walker and others. And so I like what Raheem Morris did last year in tinkering with that defense, making adjustments. And making adjustments is what Robert Saleh does so well, keeping up with the modern day offensive tendencies. And so in that way, I see some similarities there with Raheem as well.
That's going to do it for us. Thanks to Chase. Thanks to Pig in a Pickle. Thanks to Sleeper. Thanks to Habbas Law. Thanks to all of you. Chase, have a great week. I'm going to go hit the links and, try to get a little color on my white face.
There you go. Hit those drives long and straight.
There you go. See you next week. Thanks to everybody. Have a great weekend. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful.